Hey guys, Malcolm Moore here. Now, my wife gave birth a couple of months ago, which means I've been down a filmer this season. Incredibly inconsiderate of her, I know. But what that does mean is that I've been self-filming a lot of my videos using this, the Insta360 X3 camera. It's an awesome little camera, and in today's video, I want to show you how I film myself, different ways you can hold it, different angles you can get. But more importantly, I want to show you how you can then analyze that footage of yourself, analyze your own riding, spot problems in your riding, and make a plan of how to get better. So even if you don't have one of these cameras, this video will still give you some good tips on what to look for in yourself and other people's riding. So right now I'm recording in me mode, which to be honest is the mode that I use most of the time. You simply hit the button, press record, there's no keyframing, anything like that to do. The camera knows just to point back and film yourself. And because you don't need to film that full 360 bubble, the camera actually has a bit more processing power to allow it to give you a better image quality and also at higher frame rates, which is good if you want to put it into slow motion to analyze some of the movements you're making whilst you're riding a little bit better. Like right there. Now, when you are watching yourself riding, when you're looking at footage of yourself, it can be great with these cameras to look at things like, okay, do I have the correct weight distribution between the feet? Am I getting my weight stacked properly over the edge? But more importantly, what I want to show you in this video is, rather than kind of fixating on what your body is doing above the board, I want to show you how it's actually easier to look at what the board is doing. And that will tell you if there's any issues in your riding. Like for instance, is the board skidding? Is it gripping? And simple things like, are you getting an early edge change? So we'll begin by taking a look at some footage from Thomas, who I was riding with last week. And he is holding the camera out, as I just was in that last clip, like this, pretty horizontal, with his front hand, camera filming back at him in me mode. And what we're going to look for is to see if Thomas can get an early edge change, which is an essential skill to have if you want to have smooth, controlled turns. An early edge change means the board has rolled from one edge to the other before it is pointing down the slope, before it is in the fall line. And it's dead easy to spot. So let's take a look at this one. The board is already on the toe edge, just before reaching the fall line shown by this green arrow. Now let's look at the edge change onto the heels. Okay, so this one isn't quite as good. The board doesn't really get onto the heel edge until it's pretty much pointing down the slope and in the fall line. And we can actually see that before that, the board is staying quite flat. And if we look at the back end of the board there, the toe edge is actually cutting into the snow and almost catching. So that edge change definitely needs a little work. So use these cameras first to spot problems within your riding, and then you can figure out how to solve them. Next up, Thomas is riding with the camera held out like this at about a 45-degree angle. This will give us a better view down at his board, and we'll be able to see whether it's skidding or gripping. I'm going to show you why it is skidding in Thomas's case and what he needs to do to solve that problem. But you will also see how that skid on the heel side is linked to the lack of an early edge change we spotted just before. This isn't my favourite angle for filming, as it somewhat flattens the slope. We're actually on a steeper red run here. But it does do a good job of capturing the whole rider, and it makes it easy to spot whether the board is skidding or gripping. All you need to do is imagine an arrow sticking out from the center of the board going out towards the nose of the board. Now point a second arrow out from the middle of the board in the direction you're actually traveling, and you'll see how much you are skidding. If those arrows are 90 degrees apart, then you are skidding a lot, like right here. But if those arrows are closer together, then you're going to be gripping much better, as you can see right here. So let's start just before that point where the skidding was the worst, and then we can analyze why it is happening. So we'll start here. Watch now, and you'll see the upper body rotating ahead of the lower body. Now in itself, that movement can be all right if it's used to pull the front knee around, which tilts the board up onto the heel edge,
and then it's combined with a lateral movement where you drop your center of mass onto the inside of the turn, creating more edge tilt. You can see myself doing that. But with Thomas, the rotation has not really opened up his front knee. Rather, it has sent all his weight over the back foot. You can see the back knee bent much more than the front, and you can also see his weight is not inside of the turn. It's directly over the board. Thus, the board stays flat, and because of this, the bent back knee then just pushes the back end of the board around into a skid, rather than pushing it through the arc of the turn, as you can see here.
So are you not getting that early edge change, perhaps just because you're being too slow with crossing your weight over the board, like right there, which is fine because then you can just speed up those movements? Or is it linked to excessive skidding, which is a sign that you're probably getting something wrong? And by the way, you'll notice I don't actually use the protective lens guards for the camera. Now, I haven't had any problems. I don't drop this very often. It has taken a few drops and it's fine, but obviously you could scratch the lens if you really tried. And if you're worried about that, you can add Insta360's care package that will cover you for any accidental falls, cracks, anything like that, just to give you a little bit of peace of mind. So next up, we're going to take a look at some footage from Przemek from Poland. And in his clip, he's been holding the camera with his front hand out like this, recording in full 360 mode so you can see everything that's going on around him.
I've opened up the footage into the desktop app and I can point the camera around anywhere, but for now I want to leave it facing him. If you check the setting up here, I want the stabilization on but direction lock off, so that rather than the point of view moving as the camera moves, the footage will now just stay pointing in one direction no matter how much Przemek moves the camera. So let's begin. He's riding fast, but he's clearly in control. So what outputs can we see? Well, we can see a lot of skid on each edge. Here on the toes, board pointing that way, but traveling this way. And same again on the heels. But what do you think causes that? Bad posture, too much weight on one foot, not enough lateral movement? Perhaps those things might need some work, but first just have a look. Does the nose of the board ever turn 90 degrees across the slope? No, it's always pointing down. So if the board is always pointing down, it will always keep picking up speed unless you are skidding. Right there to slow yourself down. So it's by bringing the board across the slope that you're able to control your speed without skidding, and it's by doing that that you'll be able to make an early edge change that will then allow you to guide the board around the arc of the turn.
So I would advise Przemek to think about that image of the S-turns. Simply start off with the board in a traverse going across the slope. That will allow you to get that early edge change right there, and then use this traverse across the slope to control your speed. If you're not pointing down the slope, you're not going to be picking up speed. And then what you can start to do, once you've made the turn, as soon as you're in that traverse, you can quickly go into the next edge change and cut out that traverse in the middle. And if you want more tips on making S-turns, and getting an early edge change, then I'll post a video up there as well as down in the description down below that will help you more with that technique. And now if you're doing those things, if you're traversing across the slope, if you're trying to make that early edge change, but you're still skidding, then if you see that in your footage, then it's probably a sign that you have something wrong with your posture, with your weight distribution, with where your shoulders are, okay? But first, just get that image of that S shape, board across the slope, early edge change, and without even having to get too technical and think about what's going on top of the board, you might solve a lot of your problems. So use these cameras to help you get better at snowboarding, but also get creative, try different holds, different mounts, different ways of filming yourself. Let me know your favorite ways of doing it down in the comments below. And if you want some inspiration, then check out my video review that I made of this camera a couple of months ago that I'll post in the video description down below as well. So thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.